Everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm pleased to be joined by Nina to get her perspective on all things Chelsea and a little bit about West Ham ahead of Sunday's game. Nina, can you kick us off with your season? It's coming to the end now. What do you make of it for your boys in blue?
It's been a roller coaster for sure. I think that's one way to put it. But I think the expectations for Chelsea have gradually declined throughout the season. I think I went into the season with higher hopes because of how poor last season was, and we spent some money, and I thought we, really filled in a few positions that we were really lacking in, and strengthening the squad. Pochettino seems to be a breath of fresh air as well. I think the club really needed a manager that understood what the club needed, especially after so much transition with the takeover. But things have just not been that smooth, really. I think we kicked off decently, and then obviously after Liverpool's second game of the season, you guys beat us, and it's just really been up and down. We've been inconsistent, and I think that's what you get when you bring in so many young players and your clear out is as quick in a short time span that it was, with owners learning on the job, Pochettino understanding the squad, young players from all around the world starting to gel. It was never really going to kick off from the first season, really. So, yeah, it's safe to say that this project that we've been invited to believe in has definitely been put on hold, because even though somehow, we're talking about now potentially being in Europe again, when potentially a couple months ago that wasn't really an option because we were sort of stuck in 12th, and it's like, for the life of me, can we get out of this position? But it seems that if we can actually, secure Europe, this won't actually be as bad of a season as we might have thought, back in January. But it's certainly not been easy being a Chelsea fan this season. And a lot of people might say you're entitled or whatever, but honestly, it's just been so frustrating with how inconsistent we've been, not knowing what to expect. You rock up to a game, you win, and your high hopes going into the next one, and then it's all just stripped immediately because, we lose. And yeah, it's hard, and it's hard not having an identity either. I think that's another thing we've really struggled with. But Pochettino, obviously you guys don't know, but I've been someone that's really backed Pochettino for the majority of the season, because I certainly believe that the issues at Chelsea are much more deeper rooted than just the manager. Yeah. And as soon as Todd Bowley and crew rocked up, things drastically changed forever at Chelsea, and it was never going to be as simple as Poch transforming this squad that he was just given. And a lot of these players aren't Poch players either. It sounds bizarre, but there's a lot of them that were signed prior to him arriving. They're all young, but just because Poch has a reputation with working with young players, it doesn't necessarily mean that they all fit his style. So I think on the most part, if you actually look at what he's been dealt with, it's not been abysmal. I've criticised him where he's deserved it, because there's been a lot of games where, he's set us up wrong, his in-game management has been questionable, and he's not made the best of what he can in terms of what's available on the bench. But I definitely think blame is to share at Chelsea, at this club. But yeah, it could almost not be as dreadful as the season that we anticipated. So yeah.
I think I know your answer to this question then. So with all the talk around about Pochettino, with some suggestion he's going to go, and he gave a bit of a spiky interview after the Tottenham game, and everybody's interpreting it in different ways, whether it means that he thinks he's off or it means that he's just fed up getting asked about his future. I take it you would stick with Pochettino for next season then, would you?
I'd say yes, and that is purely coming from a point of view where the new owners arrived with this idea that we'd stray away from the chopping and changing of managers, because while it works under Abramovich and it's such a big part of our success, because new managers came in, success was delivered almost immediately and they left, and then it was the next manager's turn. But they made it crystal clear that that was not going to be the case, and the first step with that was appointing Graham Potter for 5 years, and that obviously went very south very quickly, and they picked the wrong manager. And I think now they've sort of put Pochettino in that kind of idea, but I think it's not as easy as changing the manager anymore, because the players have completely changed. The staff at Chelsea has changed. We're talking from sporting directors to medical staff, even to, your catering staff and your groundsmen and all those people that work together to keep the club and keep it ticking. And it's not all about what you see on the pitch. And Another thing that I really value is that Pochettino has actually built a relationship with the players. So while us fans are all, up in his face and saying results aren't going great, the players actually really like him, and they'd be the first ones to tell you that they don't want Poch to go. And I think they've made that very clear as well, because you see it in training, you see their interactions after the games, and I think that's really important. And unfortunately, my standards have dropped to a point where I really do look at that and think, that is a very important quality to have. And I just think if you sack Pochettino, you bring in another manager, you're starting from zero again. You're building relationships with players that you didn't pick. You're trying to get to know who fits where, what playing style this player has, and what weaknesses this one has, and it's just all a massive mess. So yeah, we are going to just start from zero again. And unfortunately, with the new owners and this new slate they want to bring, if we want to we've got no choice really. We have to back and believe that what they're doing is for the greater good of the club. So we almost just have to trust them. There's not much else to do, and I know a lot of fans, and rightfully so, I think both can be true. You can still believe that Poch isn't the right man for the future. Maybe he's not, but I just think that after one season, if we start from scratch again, that's going to be 3 managers in the last 2 years, and it just can't continue, because we've already started with sort of erasing, like I said, everyone at the club, and unfortunately the manager is just the easiest thing you can get rid of once again. But it might help for a few games, the fresh manager bounce that we've seen some teams have, but for the long run we are really, really behind on that already, because everything has really changed. So I guess, yeah, we'll see. But if we get into Europe again, that's not so bad. And considering we somehow went to Wembley twice this season as well with Pochettino, and we played a semi-final and a final that we almost won. I don't think it's a terrible season when you look at the grand scheme of things, but I do understand why some fans distrust Poch, and I think that's fine, and I understand that point of view as well.
In the very recent year or so, like you said, you've had a lot of change off the pitch. You've had Pochettino come on. Let's just give the club the benefit of the doubt and say this season's been a transitional season. That's been kind. So let's just be kind to Chelsea here. Looking ahead to the summer, though, there's obviously all this talk regarding PSR and how it impacts every different club, and all the rule changes coming in. It almost doesn't matter which rules they're going to go with or what this limit's going to be set at. Chelsea are always the club that's out with the new regulations, and there's a lot of talk that you're going to have to sell players this summer, in particular those players from Cobham, in order to generate the profit. Are you worried going into this summer regarding what you can and can't do in terms of player recruitment?
Yeah, definitely. I think we should be. I think, Chelsea's always been a club that people like to say we do get away with a lot, and, we find the loopholes and such. But I don't think that necessarily should be right. We should be scared. And I think what we've seen in this season and how, rules and points deductions and, things have actually been affecting clubs a lot. I think it definitely shouldn't be underestimated. But in terms of spending, I think the owners understand that we do need to, generate some pure profit. And that's, we're looking at sort of our academy players in the name of, Conor Gallagher's and Trevor Chalobah's, and that's definitely been in conversation. We saw with Mason Mount the situation that unfolded last year, so we understand it's something we need to address. And in terms of making money, I was a little bit more worried sort of, in January, because I looked at us and I saw the way we were playing and some of the players, and I thought, who's coming in for that sort of money for these youngsters, and who's really going to take them off our hands, and how do we make 50-60 million off a Conor Gallagher, particularly in January? So it was really tough, and it still I think is tough, but I am not worried in terms of our spending, because I know and I think we understand we do really need to bring in some experience, and there are still like a couple areas, I say we need to go in for a left back. That's definitely a weakness in our squad and our team. Some will maybe argue a centre back, even though we do have them. They're just injured. They're just in the medical tent all season. But I'm not too worried, because I think, somehow, again, I'm just, contradicting myself. We do seem to be okay, but I definitely think we do need to generate a large sum of money before we can actually go on another spending spree. And we know we can't do that anyway, because, those times are behind us, but there will be a few areas to address, over summer.
Are you worried about Gallagher in particular? I don't know what your opinion is of Gallagher, obviously, but I feel like he's a bit of a fan's favourite, and there was that big banner at Stamford Bridge before or during the Spurs game, and he's a player I rate quite highly, and he's obviously been given the captain's armband by Pochettino, but he's also your quick fix to the PSR thing. Like you said, he's the one that can go and command a big fee, and it's just pure profit, so it's good for the accounts, but perhaps not so good for the team or the fan base. So what's your thoughts on the possibility of losing Gallagher in particular?
Well, if you'd asked me last summer, I would have told you, that's fine by me. I think Conor Gallagher was the player we were ready to move on because, especially under like Lampard and Potter, he was nothing more than a squad player at best.
Yeah.
He was great for rotation because Gallagher will always give you energy. He will always give you a runabout, and his work ethic is like no other. And I think that's a big quality that's certainly good for his game. But in terms of building a team around Conor Gallagher, I don't think that's the case. And I think that's why we were ready to move him on. We've spent so much money elsewhere and bringing in all these, youngsters and the best talent apparently that's out there in the world. And why on earth are we suddenly deciding to build around Conor Gallagher? But actually, I think some fans' opinion changed because of what we saw from Conor Gallagher this season. And again, I hate to say this, but because the standards at the club this season have really significantly dropped, we do look to the players like Conor Gallagher. No offense to him, he's been brilliant. There's no way I'm taking anything away from his game because, when no one else has turned up, Conor Gallagher has. Another thing, he is not an injury-prone player. Let me touch wood here. But again, standards are low. That's another quality I value in a Chelsea player because everyone's in and out of games all the time, but he's been so reliable. So he deserved that banner, in my opinion. I didn't have a problem with it. He's a Chelsea through and through. And when you have such little affinity with the players that are all just sort of coming in and we don't have these relationships with them, I think it's really important to look at those players and, still take some comfort in them being there and producing and understanding what your club needs. But I don't want to be sentimental here, and I do want to look in terms of what we're building here for the future, the players that we have available. I don't want it to be a case where Pochettino continues to accommodate for Conor Gallagher to an extent where we don't get to see some of the young talent that we've brought in, because I think Poch hasn't made it a secret that he loves Conor Gallagher. You say you do, but, Conor Gallagher is certainly Pochettino's favourite player. And fair enough, because he has bailed him out a lot as well. And yeah, again, like I mentioned earlier, his work ethic, but it is pure profit. And, if we want to be thinking sensibly here and our plans moving forward, then you might look at it, if a good fee comes in for him. But, maybe that in me is sort of the sentiment speaking where I say I want to hang on to Conor Gallagher, but I know the clever thing to do is probably make that profit and move him on. And that's just, no harm there. He has been great. And again, I'm one of those fans that does truly value Conor Gallagher, but he is often the one that takes all the blame because he has been so great, and then we'll have a bad game, he'll misplace a few passes and it's all Conor Gallagher's fault, and it's like, no guys, that's not true. But I think probably the better, more sensible decision would be to move him on if obviously a good fee comes in for him.
I think he gets blamed because of his man bun. I think that's why he gets blamed for everything. For that,
he's set a trend now because Mudryk's got one of those.
Yeah, he's got his little ponytail. I think that's why he gets blamed for everything. Right, last question about your team before we move on to my team. For those that haven't seen much of Chelsea recently, which players are in form and who should we be looking out for on Sunday?
Well, half of those aren't available because of injury, but I'd say Malagusto most certainly. And I think take from the reverse fixture where we came and played you guys when we beat you beat us 3-1. I think Malagusto's a completely different player from that game, and he's maybe one you can say has really improved this season and is one of our better signings certainly. And it's a shame that he'll be missing out because I think he could really be closing down any trouble and threat that you'll be posing on that left hand side. But unfortunately, we don't have him. But other players, of course, Cole Palmer. I'm sure you all know that we absolutely adore the player, and he's been our saving grace, I like to say, this season. And I think he could probably cause some trouble. He will be playing. I don't think he had the best game against Tottenham, but then again, because his ceiling is so high, we do look at these games and think, wow, where was Palmer? But he was still at the top of his game. Who else? I think Caicedo's really been improving recently. He's been finding his feet a little bit, and I like the fact that we've got a little bit more solidity in our midfield, so potentially that could be an advantage as well in terms of containing yours. And who else? I think we've had certain players improve. Definitely, I think, I'd argue Noni Madueke as well has been another player. And I think because, again, Poch isn't spoiled for choice, he will probably be playing against you guys on Sunday. So there definitely are certain players that are improving. But the problem is you don't know what they turn up and do on the day because they're inconsistent. And that's what you get with young players.
Right then, moving on to West Ham. What's your thoughts on us? What's your thoughts on West Ham?
Yeah, well, I'd say in many ways we probably relate to each other this season in terms of our attitude towards our managers. I know yours is completely different because you obviously do still value Moyes at a very high sort of level, but you probably read the. I mean, I don't know how you specifically feel about him, but I imagine you are also wanting to move on from Moyes. But yeah, I think in terms of our managerial stance, we're quite similar, potentially even in wanting the season done and dusted as well. I think I've had that impression from your fan base as well this season that you kind of like, right, enough is enough. But you've had your sort of European, games, you've had your European spell, and, I'm sure that has been another bit of a lift in your fan base. We haven't had that this season and, coming off the back of winning a trophy as well. But I imagine you had a bit of a different expectation for this season and hasn't particularly gone your way, but I think Moyes has played a bit of a part in limiting your game and in terms of how reluctant he is to really change your style of play and change, and rotate players in that regard. So in that regard, yes, but I do also look at you and think, you could come to Stamford Bridge on Sunday and cause us some issues. Again, I think we are quite fatigued. I'm not going to use that as an excuse, but we don't have much room to shift and really change what we put out against Tottenham. And you could probably pounce on that. You have a lot of pace up front as well, which I'm a bit afraid of. And we do leak chances. And if you can be clinical and you do have the players that can be, we could concede against you. So I don't think it's going to be an easy game, to be honest with you. And I do look at West Ham, and you also have been quite inconsistent in your results as well. So I suppose you don't really know what you're going to turn up with at Stamford Bridge, but I think it'll be quite an interesting game.
Well, I'm going to push you for a score prediction, please, Nina. So what do you reckon? What do you reckon? And let's finish it up with a score prediction. What are you saying?
I think it's going to be a draw, purely because, we are going to be a bit tired and we never really take our momentum from a win in. It's a London derby. I think we'll both turn up. I think, Bowen could cause us some issues as well. Like I said, we do give up chances. I'm going to go for a draw. I want to say 2-2 because I think there will be some goals. 1-1 or 2-2, I'll go.
Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take a draw. I said 1-1 in our preview, so I'm snatching that one just to say, yeah, we're either both right or we're both wrong. It's simple as that.
I hope we win, though.
Well, I hope you don't. But thank you very much for tuning in. If you want to hear and see more from Nina, I'm going to put a link to her YouTube channel and her social media in the description below. And her latest video will be on the end slate in approximately 5 or 6 seconds time. Go do subscribe because she's just launched her YouTube channel. It's up and coming. Go get over there and listen to her thoughts. And I assume you'll be doing a review after the game, will you?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, much appreciated.
Monday, Tuesday, head over there and see what Nina says, assuming that West Ham don't get beat at Stamford Bridge on Sunday. But if you enjoyed this video, please do drop a like on it by clicking thumbs up, subscribing to Hammers Chat. Nina, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining me. And
thank you for having me.
Good luck with your YouTube channel.
Thank you.